what they don't realize, and this is something that I'm absolutely guilty of as well, and this is why I found it so profound when I read it, is that you have to go through the experience to get the results. You have to go through the experiments to get the results. You have to go take the risks to get the results. Without risks, there are no results. Without experiments, without failure, there is no success. So sometimes you're going to have to go and knock on those doors. And that's what it all comes down to, I think, from looking at it from a boldness point of view, saying that the bolder you are and going and pursuing these possibilities, pursuing these opportunities, the quicker you can see if that is meant for you or if it's not. If it's not, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, failure is only one step closer to success. Failure is only one step closer to achieving the results that you want to achieve as well. Hey everyone, welcome to the RLT podcast, where we share some real life tools, tips, and tricks to help you not only discover, but also reach your ultimate goals. Welcome back to the Real Life Tips podcast, everyone. We're so excited to have you back here with us again for a brand new episode. This is episode number 17, and I am your host, as always, Mono.
You're joined by Leon as usual, episode 16, as Mono just mentioned. Very, very happy to be here, happy to speak to you guys, happy to shed some light on some topics and share some knowledge that we've dove into a little bit over the past week. I'm actually going to take us straight into the topic tonight. I think this is going to be one of those that a lot of us have thought about, but maybe haven't actually gone deep into why we have these feelings or what these feelings actually cause as far as making decisions and stuff like that is concerned. Now, if you recall, we actually did an episode about analysis paralysis a while back. This actually ties into that a little bit, and it's got to do with boldness. So boldness is obviously the process of taking action or being able to evaluate certain criteria very, very quickly and then taking an action that takes you towards the goal that you want to achieve. That's basically what boldness is about. And if you think about the whole concept of analysis paralysis, boldness is the opposite of that. That is actually where you have the ability to cut through all the BS, make your choices, and actually take an action. So yeah, Marne, that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. We're going to discuss a few concepts. We'll also go over a couple of books that go into detail about this. That's been extremely profound, and it's going to definitely assist those of you out there that are struggling a little bit with procrastination and inaction. So yeah, Marnie, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm very, very excited about this topic specifically, Leon. I know that you shared this specific TEDx talk with me a couple of weeks ago, and it was so interesting to understand or to sort of dissect the understanding that Jennifer Cohen has about this whole idea of and how she extrapolates the idea that a lot of people tend to overthink things. A lot of people tend to put too much attention to detail, and they don't really take an approach of just going for it, right? Now, I think there's ample amount of content that speaks around it, but really I feel that in this specific talk, Jennifer really, really caught the attention of individuals like ourselves who are constantly faced with this challenge, right? Where we constantly are presented with opportunities, or we constantly look for those opportunities, and once we get presented by them, we don't necessarily know what to do with it. We don't know whether we should take an action, pull the trigger, jump and actually discard our fears entirely and just really go for it. And so it's going to be really, really interesting, Leon. I'm really amped to hear a little bit more from your side in the sense, because I see you as a bold person. I've mentioned this before. You're quite a bold person when it comes to making certain decisions in life, and I absolutely want to learn how to adopt that sort of mindset as well. So extremely amped on sharing this content with our listeners today. By the way, we will link the full TEDx talk that we're referring to in the show notes, as we usually do. But Leon, where do we start with this topic? I'm not quite sure, because there's so many angles from this. So please take us through it.
As you just mentioned, every once in a while in life, and I guess for us that are constantly seeking for betterment and improvement and so on, maybe the challenges presents itself a lot more frequently than for other people. But you're going to face these, let's call them pivot points in your life, or where life forks into two different directions. And on the one side is certainty, and on the other side is uncertainty. And usually on the certainty side, it's predictable, it's the same, it's comfort zone, it's something that you are used to. And on the other side, it could be the potential of something amazing, but you are uncertain. So what you do, and what most of us do, and this is due diligence, this should be done by all the people in the world. We're not saying that you shouldn't actually start evaluating pros and cons and things like that. But everyone starts with a bit of a process of evaluating that opportunity, whether it's a new career path or a new hobby that you want to get into, or a new relationship that you want to enter into, or whatever it might be that's a significant decision in your life that you need to end up making. We start by analyzing pros and cons. We try and see 5 years and 10 years from now, where did it lead us? And then we go into the analysis phase, and that's where a lot of us get stuck. And for some reason, many of us, and most of us, I think, are programmed to be very cautious in a way. You don't want to tread on the side of uncertainty or something that's going to impact your life negatively. The older I got and the more responsibilities I started carrying, and I had a family to look after, the more cautious I became, the more predictable I wanted things, and the more I started just kind of shying away from opportunities, just because of the fact that I'm quite okay where I am. I'm in a bit of a groove, and I'm in a comfort zone, etc. So the topic of tonight is actually about why that is so many times the death of so many ideas and so many opportunities that you could have had, and so many great things that could have happened, is usually dies very, very quickly in your head already, just because of an assumption that you made that it will fail. So yeah, you're quite right. I actually came across this TED Talk that absolutely summarized it to the point, and we will, like Martin said, link that into the description for you guys to go and see. It's from a lady called Jen Cohen. It was a TED Talk, and it's titled "The Secret to Getting Anything You Want in Life." And when you think about it that way, that's when you start realizing, listen, if I'm presented by opportunity and the only thing I ever do is taking the easy way out, or the predictable way out, or staying where you are because that's what you know, you will probably not grow at the pace that you are capable of growing at. And this could be spiritually, financially. It doesn't really matter what sense of growth or what type of growth we are talking about, but you are literally missing out on opportunities purely because of the fact that you are stuck in a place of not being able to make a decision. I think you might relate to this a little bit. I think this actually relates to a lot of people, myself included. It's just, how do you actually control it, or how do you notice when you are presented with this and you can be cognizant of the fact that this is happening again? I'm sitting with all these decisions, I'm sitting with all this analysis, and I don't know what to do. How do you identify, listen, this is just happening all over again, and I'm not going to take action yet?
Yeah. You know what, Leon? I think it's so similar, but it's so different to what I'm experiencing with analysis paralysis that we discussed in the previous episodes. And I'll tell you why I say that is because the way that analysis paralysis kicks in usually is when you have something that you absolutely have to get done. You have to get it done, but you're stuck. You're paralyzed by the amount of options that you have available to yourself, and that just paralyzes you entirely. Now, what I loved about this specific TED Talk is, Jennifer speaks to not only when you're presented with a specific opportunity, but rather being bold and going out and looking for opportunities and looking for possibilities, and actually actively going out and taking action towards the goals that you want to achieve, towards the vision, towards the destiny that you want to achieve. Hence her titling the entire talk, the secret to getting anything you want in life. And I feel that is in itself just so powerful. It's saying that if I know what I want, as opposed to waiting for the opportunities to present itself, right? Sure, first and foremost, there's a couple of things that happen when you define what you want in life. Once you define what you want in life, you your eyes open up to possibilities all around you. So all of a sudden you start seeing possibilities around you that you might not have seen in the past. Number one. Number two, right? Once you know what you want in life, you can actually go out and go look for a lot of those opportunities. I give an example, right? So if I know that I want to become a real estate investor, right? It's a fairly simple example, but if I know that I want to become a real estate investor, I know how much revenue I want or return on investment I want with the money that I want to invest, I would instantly know what to go out and look for, right? Instantly, I would go and look for opportunities in those markets, in those specific areas that would yield as much ROI or return on investment as that what I'm looking for in that specific deal or in my investment portfolio in itself, right? So all of a sudden these possibilities just explode all around me, and it's saying, coming from that standpoint of saying, be bold, don't hold back, and take what you want, right? And take each and every single opportunity that gets presented to you, analyze it quickly, and move on, move into action. And that's the beauty of it all.
Yeah, sure. I completely agree with that. And you're quite right. The idea of boldness and the way that it's explained in this scenario is actually going and finding opportunity and trying to actually improve your circumstance. And I think, when it comes to finding opportunities, and this is one of the lessons that I learned from this specific episode, but I've also now, it's a resounding fact in the industry that you will miss 100% of the shots that you do not take.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're not going to take the chance, you'll never ever know whether you would have even made it.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that's a resounding fact in the industry is that you should work on a 10% target. You should be very comfortable and attuned to failing. You should actually practice failing and failing fast. And there's the saying about failing fast as well. So 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to fail, but it's that 1 out of 10 times that you make it that's truly, truly magnificent. And you need to really do it for the passion. You should always try and do something that's going to be coming from a different part of your body than just your mind. Again, the mind is actually what's going to hold you back. There's a little bit of passion and creativity and curiosity inside you that are actually going to drive it through if you don't think about it too much. The thing is that most of us start with the lists, and we start with the research, and we start with everything that can go wrong. And many of us, myself included, are wired to actually look for the 100 reasons why something will go wrong instead of thinking about the 2, 3, or 4 amazing reasons that can make it the best idea in the world. And we really need to get out of that. That is the epitome of a comfort zone, and that is exactly how dreams get lost and never ever get followed through. So the idea is just entirely about being bold. Being bold doesn't mean to be dumb. It doesn't mean that you just rationalize everything in your head and do something abruptly without thinking about it. That's not boldness. Boldness is taking calculated measures, but then actually doing something and not sitting still and allowing your mind to drift off for hours and for weeks and for months and for years on end, thinking about something, but actually taking that step and doing it. And once you do it, you need to be careful on how much you are willing to give away during doing it. If you see that it's, you will probably have thought of a way to test the theory. And there's another specific talk that I listened to the other day from one of the co-founders of Netflix. I forget his name now. I believe you're busy with the book. Mark Randolph, I think. Yeah, Mark Randolph. Mark Randolph actually said he completely believes in the quicker you can fail, the faster you can move on to something. And the data that you get from failure is what you use to actually project forward much faster than you would if you just take your time to fail.
Absolutely.
So, for example, if you want to start a, dry cleaning business, the quickest way to find out whether it will work is put a poster on your door that says dry cleaning here, and if people pass by and they knock, you can even say knock if you need dry cleaning. And if people knock, it's a viable business and you move into the next. That's the quickest way to test the theory.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't go buy a machine, find a space, do outdoor marketing just for it to fail once you're thousands of dollars in. And I think this is, again, why boldness keeps us from our dreams. Is because we start with the end in mind, which is not the wrong way around, but we start by actioning the end game. That end game will come, and it's going to take baby steps, then it's going to take crawls, then you're going to stand up, you're going to walk, then you're going to run, then you're going to sprint.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you can't start with sprinting. What do you think?
No, for sure. I think definitely in so many cases, like you said, you start with the end in mind, but you also start with the fear of where you're supposed to end up, right? I'll tell you why I say that is because a lot of the times...
The expectation.
Exactly, right? So you want to reach the top of the mountain, right? And instantly you're at the bottom of the mountain. You haven't even started climbing. And already you're thinking, but what if I get to the top and I've got a fear of heights, right? That's the best example that I can give in that scenario like that, because it's happened to me time and time again, where I think that I want to get started with something. I look at the top of the mountain and I think, but if I get to the top, I'm going to have a fear of heights, right? But you know what happens in actual reality is if you didn't think that far, if you knew that you want to get to the top of the mountain and you know what step 1 is, you know what step 2 is, you proceed with that. What you don't realize is that by the time that you get to the top of the mountain, you've gained so much experience of looking down that you've lost your fear of heights entirely. All right. And I'm going to put that into a real life example as well, Leon, because that's the first thing that I thought of when you mentioned this, is that, when I came out of school, I've told you the story before, I think long ago. When I came out of school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. So what I did is I pretty much printed out a bunch of copies of my resume or my CV, and I walked into the very first mall, the closest mall to my house. I walked in there, didn't have a car, didn't have anything, was still staying with my parents, and I just knew that I needed to get a job, right? I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I did know that it would be pretty cool to working in IT because it just sounded really cool, right? I just looked back, like I imagined looking back at my life, or in 10 or 15 years, and someone asks you, hey, so what are you doing? You're like, yeah, I'm in IT now. So it just really sounded pretty cool. But what I did is I actually walked into the mall, and the very first IT or tech shop that I saw, I went in there and I sort of noticed that they had a poster on the wall that said that they were recruiting, and there were some prerequisites or requirements and expertise required to actually fill the position. But that didn't stop me. So I figured, well, obviously I was quite scared. I mean, I was 18 years old. So, and you're quite frightened of like, what is this grown up world and all that. But I walked in there, I handed them my resume, and I told them, hey, look, I know that you guys are looking for people. Honestly, I'm not qualified, but have a look at it. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to work and all of that. And I promise you, not even 2 or 3 days later, they phoned me back for an interview. And interview didn't mean anything. I mean, back then it was quite a big deal, but I figured, you know what? I've heard of a lot of people that go for interviews and they don't even make it through, and that doesn't really help at all. They don't get the job at the end of the day. But I went for this interview, and I promise you, it was the most fearful experience that I've ever experienced in my entire life, besides Yeah, except for holding a spider.
imagine.
But that's a story for another day. But anyways, so I got there and I figured, okay, it's going to be cool. You're going to sit down. These guys are going to ask you some questions. I mean, you don't have a criminal record or anything. You're just fresh out of high school. You don't have experience, but they know that because they had a look at your resume. So there's nothing really to be afraid of. But it didn't go anything like that. I promise you, I got there and these guys laid out, they stripped a computer clean, like parts laying everywhere, and they asked me to build this computer from scratch. And that was the most frightening experience of my whole life, because I stood there and I knew I'm never going to get this job. There's absolutely no way that I'm going to figure out how to put these parts together. A lot of those parts I've never even seen in my life. A lot of them I've heard about or read about in high school, during my IT classes and all of that. But I've never had to build a PC from scratch. I wasn't a gamer freak, like you were, or a lot of my friends were back then. So I'd never really built gaming PCs and stuff like that. Fast forward, I promise you, I got that job. And why? Because I was bold. I was bold enough to say, even though you guys required 3 years of experience and 2 separate certifications that I absolutely didn't have time or money for, because I'm just fresh out of school, I still applied for the job. I still got it, and I still stuck to that industry. Fast forward 10 years, almost 11 years later, and I'm still in the IT industry today. So it really just comes to show that if I had to look back at a lot of the challenges that I face in my job today or in my career today, I would never have gotten started, right? But now the difference is that I'm now better equipped to handle that. So absolutely, you're right. You're right.
No, 100%. And the thing that we don't see of, let's for example, take your success in your career, is that first step of boldness creates confidence. And once you get more confident, you start making more bold decisions without noticing that they're bold. And other people might see them as bold, but you start seeing them as the norm, which means you start exponentially growing versus procrastinating and actually going nowhere. I mean, if you actually break up boldness, if you look at the dictionary. It's the first time in all of these shows that I'm going to bring about the dictionary. It's the willingness to take risks, and then I want to work through these 3 things. It's to act innovatively with confidence or courage. All right, now that is actually the first time that a dictionary makes a lot of sense to me. So firstly is innovative. So it's, again, like we explained in the beginning, boldness allows you the opportunity to do something different. Do something innovative, do something that is not within your comfort zone, and actually force yourself out of that comfort zone and see what's on the other end. And if it fails, make sure it fails fast, and then you can move on to the next thing. Don't let your emotions get in the way and you go sit in a rut and think about, wow, that was a huge fail, and I've got mud on my face and everyone's laughing. Get up and try the next thing. As we said, 10%, just aim for that 10% success. So go and fail 10 times so that you can make it work once. Confidence and courage, those are 2 things that I really try and instill even in my children. I mean, I've always noticed throughout my life, and I try and work on these because I wasn't naturally born courageous and confident. But I try and instill courage and confidence in both of my children because I've seen it in other people, and I know that they have it easier in life. In many, many ways. It's not just in success as far as business is concerned. It really spills over into everything that they do. Just seems to go well. They seem to bounce back from life's challenges faster than most, etc. So confidence and courage is 2 components that you do need in order to be bold. You're not going to be able to be bold if you're going to be scared, and afraid of what's on the other side. You have to kind of be confident and courageous. Then it also mentions that it's the quality of having a strong, vivid, and clear appearance. So you kind of need to be creative as well. You need to think about the opportunity apart from its nuts and bolts. So take it apart and look at it nuts and bolts. Yes, I think an analytical brain can figure out whether something can work or not. But the opportunity won't be there if it's not possible to make it work to begin with. you already know that you can make that thing work. You need to find a vivid, clear, and a strong idea of how you can do that differently or better than everyone else. That way you will actually be able to be successful. The opportunity being there already means that there's some sort of a need or something that you notice that's worth pursuing. So that's another very important thing. To get back to the confidence and courage thing. So I like the way that you always bring up stories about your past. I've actually not done many of those, but when I was in school, I'll tell my first little vulnerable tale from my growing up. I was quite musical, actually, and most people that know me now will completely disagree or not know about it at all, because I don't seem that way anymore. But I was quite musical and talented, and I played guitar and all those things, and my mom would definitely try and involve me in all the different competitions and our Stedfords and all those things, and I hated it. But I hated the disappointment of saying, no, I can't do it even more. So I would literally just fake it. I would pretend, from a young age, I would pretend that I've got confidence, and I'd pretend that I don't feel scared or anything like that. And I would go stand there shaking internally, but no one ever thought that I was scared. Everyone thought, wow, what a confident boy. Yes, I think in the first 5 seconds you could hear my voice trembling a little bit, but you hear that from Justin Timberlake going live. I mean, the best of the best still tremble a little bit in the beginning. But other than that, I really faked it really, really well. And I read an article, during my research for this topic that actually mentioned this as well, as far as boldness is concerned. Sometimes just fake it a little, just pretend that you are already bold, and then the choices just kind of fall into place, and start making those mistakes. And again, it's about learning how to fail and practicing how to fail. That's actually going to build your boldness and going to give you more confidence, as crazy as that might sound. You don't just get confident from successes. You get confident from failures that you are able to overcome, stand up and go back and fight again. That also builds confidence, but more importantly, that actually builds courage. And you need both of those aspects to actually be successful at identifying opportunities and boldly blasting through them and trying to make a success of them.
Yeah, absolutely. That actually reminds me of something that I read somewhere in a book. I can't recall where it was from, but I read something similar in one of Robert Kiyosaki's books as well. It's the fact that the mind, and we've spoken about this perhaps way back in one of our first episodes briefly, but I've always wanted to sort of share this story as well. And I've spoken to my girlfriend about it a number of times, is that the mind can be so limiting. And I think in the book that I read it in, the analogy that they used is it's like fleas in a jar, right? So, and there was actually an experiment conducted in that specific book that they spoke of as well. There was an experiment conducted that if you put fleas in a jar and you put the lid on, right? Fleas can jump, 3 meters, 5 meters. They can jump extremely far, right? If you put them in a jar and you put the lid on, right? Leave them in there for long enough, and if you take the lid off, they won't jump out at all. And that's the best analogy that I've ever come across, in the sense of how we limit our minds to the possibilities and to the things that we can achieve, right? It's saying that when we believe we can't achieve something, or we sort of limit ourselves in that it's saying that we don't have the confidence, we don't know if we should take the risk, we don't know if we should make the next step in our lives, right? If we limit ourselves to that belief system that nothing out there will work out because of the fear and all of that, right? Like fleas in a jar, if you remove that lid, eventually you won't jump out of that jar at all, ever. No matter how far you were initially designed to jump, no matter how all of the things that you were initially designed or destined to achieve, if you limit your mind in that regard, you absolutely won't get through. So it's so powerful, Leon. I totally and completely and utterly agree with you.
That's a really good one. Yeah, I think that's a very good way, I hope, for most of our listeners to actually remember the concept. So when you are faced with a difficult choice or an opportunity, those can sometimes be the same thing or be completely different things. But Think about the fleas in the jar one. I'm gonna go write that one down myself. But actually, you mentioned Kiyosaki. So Kiyosaki also said in his book that often in the real world, it's not the smart that get ahead, but the bold. So amongst the very, very successful, this is already a well-known fact. It goes against logic and it goes against most people's grain. Some of the other things that I came across researching the topic, and this I think makes a lot of sense to me as well, is the whole concept of EQ versus IQ. So emotional intelligence versus intellectual capability. And this is 100%, I think, also a part of boldness versus intelligence, where EQ gives you the ability to actually transgress that part in your brain that wants to emotionally interfere with everything. I think if you go Google how the brain works and obviously the different hormones and everything that gets released, but if you look at the brain stem where the spinal cord comes in, that's where the messaging comes into the brain, but then it needs to go through the limbic system to the frontal lobe where all the rational thinking actually happens. So more often than not, if you don't have emotional intelligence, every single choice you make has to go through the limbic system. It has to go through the part of your brain that feels, that makes you feel things. And that's where fear starts. That's where I can't do it. That's where, doubt and all those ideas formulate from there. What you should actually do is just allow your brain to go to the rational part and ration about the idea and use both of those areas of the brain to complement each other rather than always just thinking negatively and adversely. And again, that comes down to the analysis paralysis again, where you then have the option and you need to have the right intellectual capability to think about the opportunity or decision that's presenting itself and use both your EQ and your IQ to find the best potential way forward without making any of those two parts of the brain, take over completely and make the decision for you. So it's actually a difficult concept. It's not something that I think is as forthcoming as just saying, listen, start being bold. I think if you tell people to just be bold, I think we all would have been bold by now. Most people, unfortunately, aren't. Even myself, in some regards, play it safe, to be honest, 9 times out of 10, and it's just because boldness brings, again, uncertainty. It brings having to do stuff that's out of your comfort zone and testing the theories and making sure that you prove people wrong and all those things that a lot of people find uncomfortable. But again, it's about doing that regularly and doing that as fast as possible so that you can actually grow to your biggest potential. If that's not your objective and you're completely fine with just staying as you are for the rest of your life, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that either. But for the people that do get opportunities coming up in their head or opportunities coming across their lives or ideas that they have, for those people that struggle to pursue those, this is, this messaging is really for you. I know that there's a lot of people that's completely fine with just, for example, being a parent. It's fulfilling for a lot of people. That's what they want to do for the rest of their life, and that's completely fine. Or there's some people that wants to be a general practicing doctor. And they might have been able to go into surgery or, I don't know, general surgeon or whatever, but if they want to just be a doctor, that's completely fine. We're not talking about you have to always just grow and be better. This messaging is not for you then. It's for the guys that have those opportunities and then think back and say, damn, I should have tried. Yeah. I should have done something. Rather than being regretful of not taking the step. This tools and the messaging here will help you hopefully next time when this occurs, help you make the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely, Leon. I think it's so important to understand the fact that and you spoke of this earlier on when you said, be bold, and if you want to try something, try it, fail fast and move on, right? And that really just reminded me of, again, something that I came across somewhere in my life where it said that if you're in sales, for instance, take sales as an example, you have to knock on 100 doors for one door to open. All right, but if you don't know which door it's going to be, right? It might be door number 15, it might be door number 60, it might be door number 99 or door number 100. But either way, you have to knock on 100 doors to get one door to open, to get one yes for a person to buy something from you. And I think 100%. That really applies to a lot of opportunities that we get presented with as well, and lost opportunities that we do not pursue, or possibilities that we don't even think of taking, or risks that we don't think of taking. Is the more risks you take, the quickest you can fail. The quickest you fail is the quickest you'll achieve those results as well.
Succeed.
Yeah, of course. Without and I actually want to do a dedicated topic to this at some point in the future as well.
Yeah,
but there's something very, very interesting that I read now recently as well, where it was pointed out that everybody wants results without failure or without experiments. All right, everybody wants success without failure.
They want it to easily.
Exactly. But what they don't realize, and this is something that I'm absolutely guilty of as well, and this is why I found it so profound when I read it, is that you have to go through the experience to get the results. You have to go through the experiments to get the results. You have to go take the risks to get the results. Without risks, there are no results. Without experiments, without failure, there is no success. So sometimes you're going to have to go and knock on those doors. And that's what it all comes down to, I think, from looking at it from a boldness point of view, saying that the more the bolder you are and going and pursuing these possibilities, pursuing these opportunities, the quicker you can see if that is meant for you or if it's not. If it's not, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, failure is only one step closer to success. Failure is only one step closer to achieving the results that you want to achieve as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And, going back to Mark Randolph, actually co-founder of Netflix, that we spoke about a little bit earlier, he was interviewed by Tom Bilyeu on one of his shows, and I really enjoyed the way that this man simplifies this whole process. And I think obviously you get more and more confident the more successful you get. So I can see that, he's just exuding confidence because he's had so much success. But when they started off with Netflix, it basically, there was no good ideas at the time. That's how he explained it, Every idea was a bad idea and there was no good ideas. And he basically says that all the ideas you ever have will be bad ones unless you put in the grit and you make them good. And that's kind of when the penny dropped for me. That's is that beautiful. Every single idea out there will be terrible until you do something about it and you actually make it happen. And then you're going to fail. You're going to fail a few times, but you will win eventually. And that's the perseverance, that's the dexterity that you need to actually practice. And you shouldn't get knocked down and stay down. I think the resilience is something that I think a lot of people fail with. I know of so many people that got presented with opportunities and they took a stab at it, tried maybe one or two things and failed, and then unfortunately didn't get back up again. So they actually stopped trying way too soon. And I think if they came across this message earlier, or not just us, there's a lot of people in the industry that's successful that are saying the same story, is that you have to really fail a lot in order to make it work. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, we are here to try and see if there's any ways that this is all there is, or whether life can be way more and way better. And I think, myself and Manu, we're very curious always, finding better ways and things that just improves life or improves other people's lives or improves concepts or, challenging the status quo, basically, to summarize it. And, the only way that we can actually do that is by doing different things and being creative. So the last thing that I want to mention before we start wrapping up is creativity. Creativity is something that's going to be a key part of the success. Now, so many people think when you mention the word creativity that you have to be able to create a very nice portrait of the Mona Lisa, or you have to be able to, play a very an instrument. Creativity does not just speak to the obvious people being creative in doing artful things and stuff like that. Creativity means that you need to be able to control your mind and use your mind's analytical and limbic system together in what's known as mindfulness, which is, again, another episode we'll have later on. And applying that mindfulness in such a way that you can balance emotion and intellect to create something. So you need to be able to take nuts and bolts, so from your frontal cortex and the analytical part of your brain, and take the emotions, so maybe the people's need or whatever you want to try and fix with these nuts and bolts, combine those two things and come up with either a product or a service or whatever the case might be. So creativity is something that you will have to apply. It's just really important that you look beyond just the word creativity. Creativity, as I mentioned, does not just refer to people that are creative in the sense of creating art and things like that. It's also the ability to take control of both sides of your brain, and kind of use your analytical and emotional parts of your brain to actually come up with ideas and create ideas, or at least find solutions to problems that there are. So that's another key thing in order to, it's an exercise. It's something in your brain that you need to exercise. There's a couple of companies that I read about, especially marketing firms. They do this a lot. I'm not sure what they call it. It might be called sprints, but if you guys are in the sprint business and I just misquoted, I apologize. I will go and research it a little bit more. But this is where they actually go into a room and they put a ton of ideas on the table and they go as quick and fast through them as possible, and immediately sift through all of them and come up with the best ideas. And this is kind of the process of exercising your creative brain, and doing it fast and regularly so that you can actually become good at just putting out good results at the end of the day. It's like anything, what you pretty much what you put in is what you'll get out.
Yeah.
I think we did that episode as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's pretty much just something that I wanted to mention as well, is to make sure that you apply creativity as well.
I think it's so cool, Leon. Absolutely. I think you mentioned the book, the Netflix book. That will never work. That's actually something that I'm really, really excited for at the moment. I can't wait until I finish it. I've just started. I think I've just finished chapter 2. So yeah, I very, very much enjoy books like that. One of the other books that I actually recently read, well, I say recently, but it's actually been quite a while, was a book by Richard Branson and his story, Screw It, Just Do It. Amazing. You actually introduced me to that as well. And there's a lot of that can actually apply to the topic that we discussed today. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because I really want to share that with you guys. If you haven't checked out Richard Branson's book, Screw It, Just Do It, I will link excellent. The audio link or the audiobook link for you guys in the show notes as well of this episode. So absolutely, I feel that that's a very, very good point to start. And he really just captures the whole boldness statement. It's the first thing that I think about when I see the word boldness. And I think about Richard Branson. That guy is amazing.
He's the poster boy for boldness.
He is the poster boy for boldness. It's absolutely amazing the way that his brain works, where he just doesn't really fear anything, or I can't say he doesn't fear anything, but he challenges his fears 100%. And it shows in the success that he's achieved. And if you go and read the book or you go and listen to the book, you'll understand that didn't really just happen overnight. This was all because of his boldness, right? Sure, yes, there were some elements, the fact that he was pretty much born an entrepreneur, born with entrepreneurial traits. But at the same time, I mean, it's his boldness that really led to his enormous success.
I would dare to say it's his best trait. I really think it's his best trait. He just has the ability to identify opportunity and immediately know whether it's going to be a success and just crash through it.
Yeah, most definitely.
I would definitely second Marnie. That is an excellent book to read up on. discussing boldness, and also just a really fun read. I mean, some of his life stories is just so ridiculous. The stuff that he shares, that he did, was absolutely insane. Sorry, man. I took
absolutely.
over there, but I get excited for his book.
Same. It was one of those books that, and as I explained previously as well in one of our previous episodes, is that I'm not a reader. I never used to be a reader. I'm a reader now, and I listen to audiobooks. But sometimes I still struggle. I still struggle getting through some books. So it really takes a lot for me to get entrenched into a specific book and really stick to it to the end and all that. And this was just so simple because it was just so much fun listening to the audiobook or reading the book as well. All right, I think it's time for the real life tip, Leon. I know that you specifically picked this topic for today because you have some good tips, I hope, to share, I trust, to share with me and with our audience today. So what is the first tip that you want to give to the audience today?
Okay, so what is the show? Is it real life tip or real life tips? There's a few. Look, these are going to be quite obvious, but yeah, the first thing is to go find something mundane and challenge the status quo. So pretty much find something that you are bored out of your mind of and change it. So whether it's something in your life that's just been boring you and you want to do something exciting, or if it's even a hobby that you want to take up, if you want to start mountain biking, go take money from savings, go buy yourself a mountain bike this weekend and start riding, and just get into the habit of making decisions faster that have decisions that have no bad side effects. Start by training yourself that way. So start by just being more bold about decisions that you are quite confident will have a good outcome.
Don't empty out your bank accounts or your life savings and go buy a boat.
Yeah, no. I'm not. Yeah, exactly. No. So a mountain bike, a second-hand one. Sure. From Craigslist.
Get started somewhere. Just get started. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or even just walk. Start walking and then just steal a bike from someone else. But anyways, just start doing something. Start teaching yourself to do more than just think about stuff. And this comes down to procrastinating. So that's my first tip, is stop procrastinating and start doing stuff. And again, you can really, really train yourself. Start small and work your way up to the big decisions later on. I'm not saying that listen to this episode 17 of Boldness from us and just go start a massive hedge fund or a huge business or rob a bank or something. That's not really what the messaging is about. You have to start with small steps, as most things in life, and just do something about some stuff in your life. Once you have that buttoned down, the next tip is to then mix that up with something more unexpected. So something that people would look at you and say, wow, that's a little bit out of the ordinary for that person. Something that will not shock, but maybe just intrigue a lot of people and, create some curiosity. And this is where you're going to start playing around with stuff that you are probably a little bit uncomfortable yourself, and hence the reason people find it a little bit unexpected. When you start small. So maybe for me it was gymming. It's a good example, is to actually start exercising a lot. I mean, I think it's unexpected for a lot of people, and most people have got bets stacked highly against me failing. And so far so good. So do that, do something unexpected. Then the last two tips, and then I'll allow you to give some tips as well. But this is kind of taking you through the process of getting where you're actually more comfortable with taking some risks and so on. Is you need to learn how to say no, especially when you don't feel like doing something. So we're not saying take each and every risk. You need to also still balance and understand what is a definite no and stick to your gut. And again, the gut is another really smart word for emotional intelligence and so on. So still listen to your gut. If something is a no, keep it a no. And lastly, I would say remember the tip I mentioned during the episode, pretending a little bit. If you're not naturally bold and courageous and confident, you really can fake that stuff. I mean, that's how actors are born.
Yeah.
You know, it's literally something that you can fake. And I mean, a lot of people think I'm just talking nonsense now, but you can Google it. You can actually, you know, get through some of these states of your mind by just faking it and pushing through it and not thinking about it, and not allowing that part of your, you know, reptilian brain to actually take over completely your fight and flight response. And then lastly, go beyond your strengths and weaknesses. Challenge yourself. So if you know what your weaknesses are, you know what your strengths are, focus on your strengths, but go beyond them. See what's on the other side. If you bench press 80 kilograms and you think that's your strength, you don't really know whether you can do 100 if you just keep on doing 80.
Yeah.
So push. It's like the experiment you just mentioned. You know, you have to challenge yourself and go beyond what you thought was capable. And yeah, I think that's
that.
just a very good recipe for success.
I absolutely
What's your tip?
love
Try and do better than mine.
Well, no, there's absolutely no way I can top what you said, right? But I do have one to add, though, on top of that as
Sure.
well, from what we've now discussed, and sort of something that has come to mind is that, again, something that I read somewhere or saw somewhere or heard somewhere is that perfection is the lowest standard. And this is something that I constantly, I wish I could print it out on a poster and just put it up in every room in my house, because sometimes we pride ourselves in being perfectionists and we see that as a good thing, but it's not always a good thing. In actual fact, it's been proven that perfection is the lowest standard. If you take too much time and you overthink something and you don't take the risk, you're going to end up not taking action. You're going to end up stagnating. You're going to end up doing the exact same things that you did yesterday and the day before that. And it's just never, ever going to change. So don't wait for something to be perfect. Don't wait for the perfect circumstances. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for the next day. It really just comes down to saying, what is it that you want? Weigh up the pros and the cons and the risks. Obviously, take calculated risks, but know that perfection is the lowest standard in a lot of cases. All right. So let's quickly recap, Leon. So on some of the tips that you mentioned, right, is do something and do it right now. Pick something this week that you can do, that you can start, go out and buy a mountain bike, whatever the case is, right? Do something unexpected. Number 2. Number 3, learn to say no as well. All right. Listen to your gut. Okay. Number 4, fake it till you make it. This is something that personally has worked so much for me in my life. I've admitted it to so many people, but honestly, it's so true. Fake it till you make it. That really, really takes you through a lot of building confidence when you don't have confidence, really pushing yourself through and tricking your mindset. As we mentioned, the fleas in a jar.
Even the most confident people had to at some point fake it till they
100%.
made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, most definitely.
They didn't crawl out the womb confident.
Exactly.
It doesn't work like that. So fake it until you make it. And the more you fake confidence, again, it's about growing in confidence. So stuff that you thought you faked actually becomes real confidence at a later stage.
Absolutely. And then the last one, go beyond your strengths and weaknesses. I've resonate with that so much, Leon, because I mentioned this before, but Albert Einstein said, you cannot do the same thing over and over and expect different results. So if you just do 1% better today than you did yesterday, you're going to be better, all right? And you're going to grow and things are going to change. If you just do one thing different tomorrow, one thing that stepping outside of your comfort zone, taking that risk, right? Taking that, or looking for an opportunity, going out and actually looking for an opportunity, not just waiting for opportunities to present themselves. It's bound to change. Your situation is bound to change. So go beyond your strengths, 100%. Go beyond your weaknesses, and always know that one step is at least one step closer. Don't stand still, don't stagnate. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Thank you so much once again for joining this episode of the Real Life Tips Podcast. We are so excited to always have you guys here with us, and we're amped for those of you that have joined us all the way from our first episode all the way up to episode number 17. We're so stoked and we're so excited to see you on the next episode. That is me signing off. Mono.
You were joined by Leon as usual. Thank you very, very much for joining us. We'll see you on the next one.
Cheers. Bye. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining this episode. We really hope that it inspires and motivates you. By the way, we're giving away a free 5-step personal budget template that will help you take control of your financial goals. So just head over to rltstudios.com, sign up for our newsletter, and we will get that right over to you. So head over to rltstudios.com and we will see you in the next episode. Until then, cheers.